What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel, where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, put it on all so you get notified as soon as we drop any new content on the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. So, just today on TalkSport, it wasn't enough that over the weekend Anthony Joshua had his rant, he had his say in the ring, his crazy outburst. Now we have Tyson Fury, not to be left out of the ranting and not to be left out of the media. He calls him to TalkSport and he has his turn. He has his time to have his rant, to say what he's got to say. So he calls in on the White and Jordan or Jordan and White show and he has his say. And allegedly this is all about the undisputed fight between him and Alexander Rusik. And he calls in, he says, yeah, boys, yeah, get up there. Da, 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 da. Yeah, everyone keeps asking me about this little Ukrainian guy, this little middleweight. And I'm here to sort of have my say. And they said, yeah, there you go, Tyson. Here's the floor. And he proceeded to have this rant for like 15 minutes. And to me personally, a lot of it was just nonsensical, really. He came in and he said, yeah, here we go, and just full of contradictions. He said, first contradiction was, he said, yeah, I'm happily retired, boys. I'm happily retired. I'm good. I'm happy with what I've done. I'm a legend, blah, blah, blah. And he's happily retired. And then he goes, yeah, but if they want me back, they're going to have to pay me that $500 million, 500 million. If they want me back, that's what they're going to have to pay me to beat this Ukrainian. And then he referred back to Anthony Joshua again. He goes, yeah, we could have had Anthony Joshua for free, but now that Anthony Joshua lost and it's happened again to Anthony Joshua, now you're going to have to pay me $500 million. They're going to have to get the checkbook out or whatever, as he said. You know, to get the Gypsy King out of retirement, it's going to cost you all this obscene amount of money. He goes, I'm the man, I'm the cash cow, it's me now. You're gonna have to pay me, and you're gonna have to pay a lot of money to get me out of retirement. He said, as I said, that he restated that, yes, I would have fought Anthony Joshua for free, which I believe is a load of rubbish. Of course, these prize fighters are not fighting no one for free, not after having made so many millions. He then goes on to say, yeah, for me, do you know what? It's not about money. It's not about the money. I've got more than enough money. But I need to still get that $500 million if you want me to fight this guy Usyk, which makes you think, does he really want this fight? You know, $500 million, no one's going to give him no $500 million. No one's got anything close to $500 million. He's not really that much of a cash cow, so how he's going to get $500 million, no idea. But anyway, he then went on to sort of disrespect Usyk. Oh, he's just a middleweight. He's a pumped up middleweight. When he was an amateur, he was a middleweight, blah, blah, blah. But what he misses out is that although, yes, I think he did fight as a middleweight at some point in his career, we all know, anyone who watches amateur boxing and professional boxing knows that, you know, yes, he was a lighter weight early on in his career, but towards the latter part of his career, what weight did he fight at? He fought as a heavyweight. So when he was fighting guys like Joe Joyce and that, this was at heavyweight and super heavyweight. It wasn't at middleweight. So that statement's kind of nonsensical. You know, Usyk is most well known for his wins at sort of heavyweight. That's what he's most well known for in the amateurs. So this idea of being a middleweight is just stupid. I mean, he then tried to criticize Usyk's pound for pound stats, saying, oh, you can't just imagine we're all the same weight, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's still a middleweight, you know, but he's ignoring things here once again, because the reason people consider Usyk pound for pound, some say the best and some say one of the best, is that you got to, you know, Fury's just ignoring his achievements here, because he's done something that Fury hasn't done and can't do, because obviously he's too big, too heavy. And that is, he cleared out the cruiserweight division. He moved up to heavyweight, and within, what is it now, 4 fights at heavyweight, Witherspoon, Chisora and Anthony Joshua twice, within 4 fights at heavyweight, he became the unified champion and defended the unified championship, defended all 3 of the belts. He's already done that within 4 fights. And, you know, that kind of eclipses, you know, the speed of that kind of eclipses, you know, even in a sense, you could even argue Fury's achievement by beating Klitschko, because when Fury beat Klitschko, He then spun off into obscurity, and there was the drug scandal, and he spun off and went and ballooned up in weight and all this sort of thing. So he didn't actually defend the titles that he won off of Klitschko. He had that one spectacular win, but then he went off into a sort of crazy thing, and there was all the mental health stuff. So he didn't actually defend the unified titles. He didn't defend. He went off into his binge and all this sort of stuff. So, you can't really ignore that if you're being objective when you're looking at Alexander Usyk. Of course, he's a pound-for-pound fighter. Who else cleared up you got to go back to sort of guys like Evander Holyfield and them type of guys. I think David Haye as well, to some respect, cleaned up the cruiserweight division and then come up. And Usyk literally done it. Not only that, he done it in people's backyard. He went to Russia. He went to all different people's countries, beat them in their own country, and became undisputed at cruiserweight. And now he's one step away from becoming undisputed as a heavyweight. So of course he's pound for pound fighter. That's nonsense. He tried to compare himself to Floyd Mayweather, saying, because obviously we know Floyd Mayweather made hundreds of millions towards the latter part of his career, even in the crazy fights like Conor McGregor and stuff like that. But then, and he said, yeah, look, Floyd, he's a welterweight, he's doing this stuff, he's getting hundreds of millions, so surely if he's a welterweight and getting that much money, I'm a heavyweight, I should get that much more. Which again is kind of a nonsense again, because Floyd Mayweather, the reason he gets that sort of money is because he brings that sort of money back. When Floyd Mayweather fights, it always sells out. It's always a million plus on pay-per-view in America. Floyd shows they sell out. So when that type of money is invested in Floyd Mayweather, he always makes the promoter back their money, or the TV network, the pay-per-view. Floyd Mayweather, you spend money on him, you give him obscene amounts of money, and he makes you obscene amounts of money back. But the same cannot be said for Tyson Fury, because when he fights, it's not the same thing. There's guys losing money on him. I think Bob Arum and some of these TV networks, even him versus Wilder too, those fights he had with Wilder, they didn't make back the same sort of money that Mayweather and even Joshua fights make. So, if someone invests that type of money in Fury, it's going to lose their money rather than make their money. So he can't really compare himself when it comes to being a cash cow to a Mayweather, to a Canelo, or even to an Anthony Joshua, because his fights actually lose money when it comes to the box office and all this sort of thing. So he's not the cash cow he thinks he is. And as he goes down, he goes that, I'd beat Usyk with 1 week's training and blah, 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 which obviously is nonsense. And he said, yeah, Usyk's just easy work. He's a middleweight. I would walk straight through Alexander Usyk, But this, although, when you look at Fury's career, look at one of the guys he struggled with the most. And at some point he claimed this is the toughest fight he had. And that was against Steve Cunningham, which was another cruiserweight who, former cruiserweight Steve Cunningham. And Fury before that fight was saying, oh yeah, I'm going to bash him up. I'm going to walk straight through him. I eat cruiserweights for breakfast. I'd eat David Haye, blah, blah, blah. And talked a big game. But when you look on that fight, Steve Cunningham gave him some of the most trouble he's ever had in his career. Steve Cunningham was able to slip punches. He was slick. He was fast. And in that fight, you got to give Fury credit as well, because Fury had to adjust. He realized that when fighting a small guy like a Cunningham, who's fast and slick and slippery, Fury needed to change his game plan completely, and he began to grab and hold Steve Cunningham, lean on him, use his weight, and he had to change all that he does. He had to go from boxer to mauler and brawler in order to beat Steve Cunningham. So Fury, you look at his career, even Otto Wallen, he has trouble with smaller heavyweights. He has trouble with smaller guys because he can't pin them down, and it's very hard for him to sort of outbox guys like that because they're so small and slick and hard to catch. So his hardest fight, by his own admission, was against a smaller heavyweight, a former cruiserweight in Steve Cunningham. So if Cunningham gave him trouble, was able to drop him, what do you think a guy like Alexander Rusik is going to be able to do? He also called Alexander Rusik an unknown quantity. This little Ukrainian who no one knows him, no one knows his name. But this guy that's, this same Fury that's claiming Usyk is a nobody, no one knows his name, no one else knows how to say his name. Look at who he fought in recent years. Look at the guys he was fighting on his comeback and in between the Wilder fight. You had Tom Schwartz. Did people know who Tom Schwartz was? No, I didn't know who he was. Did people know Sefer Seferi? I'd heard of him, but did I know his career? Was he a popular figure? Was he a big fighter, a big name that everybody knew? No. He fought a guy like Otto Wallin, who is a good fighter, Swedish heavyweight, gave Tyson Fury lots of problems, but did people know him? Was he a popular fighter? No. I would argue more people know Usyk than know Otto Wallin. And of course, Pianetta. Who knew Pianetta when Fury fought him? No one knew Pianetta. But yet he's got the cheek and the audacity to call Alexander Usyk some unknown Ukrainian who nobody knows. That's kind of crazy to me. That's basically, again, nonsense and contradictory, because you fought these four guys, Seferi, Wallin, Schwartz, Pianetta. No one knew them guys either. But at least when you're talking with Usyk, even if you want to say no one knows him, look at what the man's achieved. Cleared out his division, came up, became unified champion. None of these guys on your list ever done anything close to that. He also said that he's a legend and Usyk is not. And he's a legend and Usyk needs to fight him to be a legend. And now, while I agree that, yeah, in the public eye, perhaps Usyk needs him more than he needs Usyk. But to me, what Usyk has done by clearing out a division and becoming a 2-division world champion, having most of the belts at heavyweight, if Fury refuses to fight him or Fury price himself out or whatever, I'd still say that what Usyk has done is legendary. Because you look at Fury's career, how many world title fights has he had at heavyweight? He's probably had only, 3 against the same guy in Deontay Wilder, and then you've got against Klitschko. That's pretty much it. He hasn't had that many world title fights to really be calling himself a legend and mentioning his name alongside Rocky Marciano. Those guys like Marciano, Ali, Frazier, Form, these guys defended their belts several times, and these guys became undisputed champion. They weren't satisfied to just have one belt and just sit on it and just talk all this big talk. These guys, I forgot Dillian White was his other, so he's had like 5 world title fights. Joshua's had more than that. Even Wilder's had more than that. So he kind of talks himself up here, but he hasn't by any means cleaned out the heavyweight division. So it's a bit cheeky to say that Usyk needs to fight him to be a legend. I think they kind of need each other. Because I think for Fury to be bigging himself up so much, he does need to become undisputed. And I think Usyk, for his legacy, he also would need to fight for the undisputed and try and become undisputed, at least fight for it. But yeah, that's what he said about him. And then he goes on to say, oh, you've got a 7-day deadline to get the money together. Oh, blah, blah, blah. The Saudis have got to get... And he called Usyk boring, which was a bit of a... Although, yes, the fight wasn't the most exciting fight in the world. But, you look at his fight. Look at his fight when he fought against Klitschko. You look at the first Wilder fight, apart from the knockdowns, wasn't an exciting fight. It was a boxing lesson, all that tip-tap stuff he was accusing Usyk of doing, he was doing exactly the same thing in the first Wilder fight. It's only the second and the third ones where he changed his tactics and he turned puncher and he started fighting in an exciting way. But prior to that, a lot of his fights in his mature career have been sort of boxing lessons. He's been out boxing people. He's never really been known as a puncher up until these very recent years. So, even the way he won and became the champion and beat Klitschko, that was a boring fight to the naked eye. That wasn't exciting. There were no knockdowns, no knockouts. A lot of people didn't like that fight. So to call this one boring is a bit hypocritical in my eyes. And, in this whole thing, this whole 15-minute thing, the only guy that was kind of real with him and sort of got down to business was Simon Jordan, who I don't really agree with his opinions on a lot of things, but he was the only one that sort of got down to business and said, look, Fury, stop talking about money. We as the fans, we don't want to hear about your money. We don't want to hear about your $500 million. All we want to hear about is, are you going to fight this guy or not? Are you going to take this guy or not? Are you retired or you're not? You know, if you want to fight this guy, fight the guy. Stop talking to us about the money and start talking about the fighting. And that I do agree with. And I'll end it on there. Let me know what you thought of that. What did you think of this 15-minute interview thing with Tyson Fury and the colorful language he used? And, you know, let me know what you thought about this in the comment section below. And until next time, it's MKO Pugilism over and out.